Eskom makes the dreaded announcement. Stage 1 rotational load shedding has kicked in across the country this evening, due, says Eskom, to ongoing industrial action. Zimbabwe election results trickle in, but presidential results expected only later this week. However, ZANU-PF and the MDC are both claiming victory. This is eNews at 8. I'm Sally Burdett. Good evening. Well, our top story this evening is that Eskom has implemented stage 1 load shedding across the country tonight. They say this is a direct result of people feeling intimidated and staying away from their places of work due to the industrial action. I'm joined on the line now by Eskom spokesperson Kulu Pasiwe. Good evening, Mr. Pasiwe. Could you give us an update? Are we still in stage 1 load shedding? Is it due to end at 10 o'clock tonight?
Yes, Sally, we still are on stage 1 load shedding, which started at 5 o'clock and will continue until 10 o'clock this evening. And as you correctly mentioned, the reason why we are in this situation is because of the instability at our power stations, especially with acts of intimidation and other things that are happening there, with trucks being blockaded that are delivering coal, and our own staff, which are going for different shifts, also being intimidated. Unfortunately, because we need warm bodies to run some of the facilities, we are unable at this stage to continue to ensure security of power supply, which is why we had to implement stage 1 load shedding.
Earlier today, you said that police were being used to safeguard against intimidation. Are those police already deployed to the troubled areas? And does that mean no more load shedding after tonight?
Well, the police here have been deployed to all the power stations. The reason why police are there, among other things, it is because all our power stations are national key points, and in terms of the law of this nation, whenever we have any incident there, we need to notify the police so that they can protect the facilities there. So as far as load shedding is concerned, it's very difficult to say as to when exactly it will end, because remember, this is a function of the instability that we are seeing there. However, I would like to point out that we have now implemented Section 150, which, among other things, says that we need to meet with under the auspices of the CCMA and the Bill of an Agent application. So tomorrow at 10 o'clock, we will be meeting with the 3 unions, which is NUMSA, NUM, and Solidarity, under the auspices of the CCMA. Hopefully tomorrow there will be either a closing of sort of coming together in terms of reaching a settlement, or we might actually find some resolution, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right, so we were hearing that it was going to be Friday, but now with the CCMA on board, what I'm hearing from you is a slightly more optimistic tone that maybe by 10 o'clock tomorrow, things might be heading towards a resolution. But what more can Eskom put on the table?
Well, in terms of our offer, we have said to the unions that we have put an offer which has 2 components. The first part of it is that it's 7% for the next 3 years. But
what more can you put on the table? I mean, this has been going on for so long. We know all those terms. Are you going to be offering something new tomorrow? Can you?
Well, there's nothing new we can offer, because the unions are saying they want a bonus payment, and we have already indicated that the company has posted a net loss of 2.3 billion. There's no money, and as you know, the payment of bonuses is a function of the profitability of the company. If we are in a situation like Eskom is at the moment, where our finances are in charter, essentially, so there's not much we can do in terms of offering any bonus payment.
Thank you so much. That's Eskom spokesperson Kulu Pasiwe telling us that there is a meeting with the unions tomorrow. Hopefully that will solve the impasse, though of course it has been dragging on for a number of weeks. Police deployed to troubled areas, but no real guarantees this evening that load shedding is over for now. Now, more than 6 million people in South Africa are unemployed, and that's a conservative figure, counting only the people who are still actively looking for a job, not those who've already given up. Statistics SA's quarterly labour force survey shows unemployment has risen to 27.2% in the first quarter of this year. Black women and young people are still the worst affected. John Bailey reports.
Stats SA says unemployment increased by 0.5 percentage points in the second quarter. 105,000 jobs were lost in the manufacturing sector, 93,000 jobs in the services sector, and 57,000 trade jobs were lost. And it seems some races are more affected than others.
Irrespective of sex, the Black African and colored population group remain vulnerable in the labor markets and are highly affected by unemployment.
At the same time, the unemployment rate among youth aged 15 to 24 continues to climb and is now at almost 54%. The unemployment rate for young people is more than double that of the 45 to 54-year-old category. The Reserve Bank is warning that the country's slow growth will not help the high unemployment rate.
Growth of 1.9% is expected in 2019, whilst the forecast for 2020 remains unchanged at 2%. At these growth levels, we cannot expect to make appreciable inroads into the unemployment problem of the country.
Good news, however, is that employment increases were recorded in the transport sector with 54,000 additional jobs. Mining added 38,000, mostly in the gold and uranium ore sectors, and construction saw an increase of 45,000 jobs. John Bailey, Pretoria.
Brace yourselves, from tomorrow you will pay more for petrol and taxi fares. Petrol goes up by 1 cent a litre. Now that's a small jump, but coming on the back of a series of steep hikes this year. The South African National Taxi Council has announced increases on local routes ranging from 1 to 10 rand extra per trip and up to 20 rand extra for long distance trips. Meanwhile, political parties and civil society groups hit the streets today over the petrol price hikes. Reporter Lindo Kuhle was there.
Enough is enough. That was the message from a group of organizations that marched to the National Treasury to call for not just a stop to petrol price hikes, but also a reduction in the fuel levy.
It's not only motorists that is affected by that, it's each and every one.
100 billion rand was stolen. Go fetch it in Dubai and subsidize the fuel levy as it is today.
The march was organized by the Democratic Alliance, the Organization Undoing Tax Abuse, and other political and non-political groups. The DA says the groups aren't asking for too much. Maimane says the government should sell state-owned enterprises that run at a loss.
We must make a decision about entities like Eskom and South African Airways, that if we indicate that we want to sell those, that gives us the fiscal room for us to be able to absorb some of these cuts, because we can't favor SA and Eskom at the expense of citizens.
Cope says it's important for parties to stand together on major issues.
The very existence of political parties is to talk and represent the will and the plight of the people.
The political parties involved say they'll call for an urgent debate on the fuel price in Parliament. Lindo Kuhle, Pretoria.
Well, now to Zimbabwe, and after yesterday's peaceful vote, the country is waiting. Some results trickling in, but the presidential result might only be announced on Saturday. The main opposition is accusing the country's electoral commission of deliberately delaying, and with half the votes reportedly already counted, one has to ask, why will it take so long? Well, our reporter Aldrin Sampier joins us from Harare. Evening, Aldrin. Does the opposition have a point? Why the delay?
Well, good evening. The Electoral Commission indicating that when the results are pasted on the walls of the various polling stations, those results being sent to the various constituencies must first be verified before they are announced. But this morning, we heard the announcement of the first set of results this afternoon, as well as an indication from the Electoral Commission late in the afternoon as well, that as it stands at the moment, ZANU-PF is leading with around 6 seats to the National Assembly and one seat going to the MDC, and this is an announcement based on the 210 seats that people vote directly members of Parliament. Right, so 7 out of 210 seats are in, so really very early stages. What is the fear around delays? Is it that results can be possibly sort of reverse engineered? Yeah, you have these doomsayers, including the opposition party, that's making the argument that why doesn't the Electoral Commission just announce the results? And the specific results that they're looking forward to is the results of the presidential candidates and who has emerged victorious from that. And speaking to the Electoral Commission spokesperson earlier on, he did indicate that as it stands at the moment, you might find that some of its constituencies have the results, but those results are not official as yet, up until the Electoral Commission at its head office has been able to verify those results. And as you indicated earlier on, that the announcement of those results expected no later than Saturday in line with the constitution of the country, that 5 days after the elections, that's the only period that the Electoral Commission has to make the announcement.
Now, interestingly today, both ZANU-PF and the opposition MDC is quite optimistic about victory, and that's putting it mildly. Do you think it is going to be quite a closely run thing? Could we see a runoff? Elgin, can you hear me? We seem to have lost our line to Harare, but I'm sure we'll be catching up with our team in Zimbabwe in future bulletins. Still ahead on eNews.
When we come in, we scope and...
The South African National Defence Force says military intervention in the fight against crime should be a last resort. To Kimberley and the mayor who just won't go. Mangalisa Matika has been ordered to vacate his office until his disputed role is decided on the 22nd of August. Last week, the Sol Plaatje mayor was removed in a vote of no confidence, but he's refusing to step down. Kimberley and surrounding areas have been hit by a wave of service delivery protests. Nesta Kivet reports that some schools have been closed as a result.
Well, things don't look good for Mangaluso Matika. The Northern Cape Court ordering him to step aside from his position as mayor of Sol Plaatje municipality until this matter is finalized on the 22nd of August. Now, things aren't looking good for the mayor in that vote of no confidence. He lost out with 11 ANC MPs siding with the Democratic Alliance and the EFF to remove him as mayor of this municipality. At the same time, Matika, as well as the Speaker of the municipality, said that they would be bringing their own application to the High Court in order to get a declaratory order declaring that special sitting in a motion of no confidence null and void at that time. But things don't appear to be looking good for Matika. He has now been ordered to step aside from his position until such a time that this matter is finalized on the 22nd of this month.
Now, the Defence Force says sending the army into residential areas to fight crime should be a last resort. Briefing the media on the state of the military today, General Solly Shokhe says while the army will go wherever it's ordered to, citizens must be aware that soldiers are trained to, and I'm politely paraphrasing here, to act with force. The General's comment follows calls for the army to be deployed to the Cape Flats to fight gangsterism.
Crime is not in our domain, and we'll try to avoid as much as possible to get involved in combating crimes. Because if I may repeat what I said in November, that when we come in, we score, and you don't want, in fact, ourselves to be in that situation where now we are seen to be fighting against our own people.
Now, tomorrow is the 1st of August and the start of Women's Month. Many South Africans are calling for bold moves to end violence against women and children. And to make that point, the hashtag Total Shutdown movement will be marching in cities and towns across the country tomorrow, and they don't want men marching with them.
We are marching to 3 key areas. It is a nationwide protest, but we've strategized it to 3 key areas. We're marching to the executive, which is the union buildings in Pretoria. We're marching to the legislature, which is Parliament in Cape Town. And we're also marching to Bloemfontein, the Supreme Court of Appeal there, which is the judiciary, which is going to be the first march of its kind there. And the demands that we're handing out would be specific to all those 3 branches of government. And our framework is on our website. We set out about 24 demands to symbolize that 24 years of post-democracy, women, children, and gender non-conforming people are not safe in the country. We have specifically said that we do not want any men on the ground because this is a time for mourning and coming together as women and gender non-conforming people.
Let's recap your top stories this evening. Eskom implements load shedding stage 1, due, they say, to ongoing industrial action, but does confirm there's a meeting with the unions tomorrow to discuss an end to the wage deadlock. Zimbabwe election results trickle in, but presidential results expected only later this week. However, ZANU-PF and the MDC both claiming victory. We've got your weather news coming up next, and then it's an acquired taste, but South Africa is acquiring quite a lot of it. We drink nearly 39 million litres of whiskey every year.
Good evening, everyone. A rapidly weakening cold front will make landfall overnight along parts of the southwestern coastline, where rain is expected into the early parts of Wednesday morning. But later on, that cold front will dissipate, and along with that, the rain will thin out. And for the rest of the country, it will be mostly sunny and dry. Some cloud does move in over KwaZulu-Natal later on, and we're expecting warmer weather in the eastern parts, while that cold front will be cooling things down towards the west. And that also includes the Northern Cape, where we can see it is going to be a cooler day for Uppington and Kimberley, only managing to climb into the lower 20s, although it will be mostly clear. And in the Western Cape, we see temperatures below the 20-degree mark for just about all of the province. And there is a possibility of light rain, especially for the western parts. We could also have a few drops for parts of the Karoo and over the mountains. In the Eastern Cape, the cooler air also spreads into this area. Temperatures below the 20-degree mark over the western half of this province. But along the coastline, some areas climb into the lower 20s. Hotter weather expected into parts of KZN, especially for the northern interior. Ladysmith, Newcastle and Vryheid all reaching a high of 29. And we'll see even hotter conditions into the low veld of Mpumalanga, where Bombela and Skukuza get above 30 degrees Celsius, while it will be a dry and gusty afternoon across the high veld. In Limpopo, you can expect mostly clear weather as well. It's going to be a hot day for some parts of the province, especially in the north and east. And into the northwest, where we can see that it is going to be a warm afternoon over this province, and those minimum temperatures will also be quite high, closer to the 10-degree mark than what they have been for a while. In the Free State, you can expect windy weather all across the northern parts for the afternoon. Bethlehem and Harrismith, your wind speeds get to at least 30 kilometers per hour. And finally, for Gauteng, mostly clear, warm and gusty conditions expected for your Wednesday afternoon. Let's take a look ahead to Thursday, and we expect the country to stay mostly dry, but there could be rain for parts of the southern and eastern coastline. And on Friday, KwaZulu-Natal will be mostly cloudy along with light rain. Similar conditions for Bombela, while it will be clearer and warmer in the west.
And finally, whiskey is becoming the most popular spirit in South Africa. We consume nearly 39 million litres of it every year. Bars like this one serve a variety of brands, ranging from Scotch, single malt, blended to Japanese whiskies. Now, while beer is still the most common alcoholic beverage in South Africa, trend analysts say middle-class spending is increasing for whiskey sales, and tasting sessions like these are all the rage.
You can drink it over and over without really losing your mind. So I think, unlike a vodka or a gin, I think a whiskey you can go through the whole night and you're still feeling good.
For this country and for other similar countries in terms of emerging middle class, countries that are now, their economies are starting to grow, and you've got a new, middle class that have disposable income, and they're choosing to spend that potentially then on whiskey.
Recapping your top stories, Eskom has implemented stage 1 load shedding this evening across the country, due, they say, to ongoing industrial action, but they're meeting unions tomorrow. Zimbabwe election results trickle in, but presidential results expected only later this week. However, ZANU-PF and the MDC both claiming victory. And that's the news from me and the team. Good night.